and Jim. Going to join us next.
I can call that.
Oh, sure you can. Keep looking at the paper.
Meeting a girlfriend's father is never an easy thing to do. So it was with a bit of relief that minutes after I met Ted, when he found out I worked with computers, he whisked me off to his computer room, showed me a state-of-the-art, brand new machine, and presented me with a list of problems he'd been having with it. So I sat down at his computer, tweaking this and working on that, expecting that my future with his daughter depended on my performance. We bonded instantly, and over the next few years, he not only became my father-in-law when I married Amy, but he became the father I always wanted. The reason we bonded so well, aside from Ted's amazing ability to treat everyone with respect, even a 27-year-old kid from a vastly different background as he, was because we shared a love of all things technical. I loved learning about machines, be they boats or airplanes or generators, and Ted certainly loved teaching me about these things, or how to fix them when they broke. One common theme I keep hearing from people up at the lake is that Ted was the guy they would go to if they had a problem with something. Take it to Ted Harris, he'll fix it, they say. And Ted would take whatever it was, look at it logically, take it apart if need be, and figure out why it was doing what it was doing. There'd be many times up at the lake where I'd stand over Ted's shoulder as he'd show me how to drive a boat, start a generator, fix a leaky pipe. I never had that sort of experience growing up, so I'd always sort of stand back and admire him, thankful that after 27 or some odd years he was finally teaching me all of this. The story I have to tell doesn't take place up here at the lake. It isn't very technical in nature, and it doesn't even directly involve Ted. But I'm going to tell it anyways, because I think Ted would appreciate it. The day Ted died, the family gathered up at his and Kate's home up in Lebanon, New Hampshire, to do the types of things that families do when such an event occurs. As you can imagine, it was an exhausting day, so Amy and I went to bed early. We stayed up a bit, lying in bed, discussing her father as well as the day's events. As I lay there talking to Amy, I looked up and I noticed an oval of light on the ceiling above us. This by itself wasn't surprising. There was a light on in the room. However, one side of the oval, this oval of light, was shaped kind of irregularly. And as I looked at the rough shadow along the edge of the oval, my imagination got the better of me, and I began to make out the profile of a man. The more I stared at it, the clearer it became, till I was convinced I was looking at a man's profile, not only any man, but I was looking at Ted Harris's profile in the ceiling above me. Now, I'm not a spiritual person by any means. I don't believe in ghosts or pretty much anything that doesn't come equipped with a technical manual. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit spooked by what I was looking at. I tried to put it out of my mind just to chalk it up to exhaustion, but as I lay there talking to Amy, I kept getting distracted by it, by this image, Ted Harris, projected above me. Eventually I had to share it with Amy. Without telling her what I was seeing, I asked her to look up and tell me what she saw. She said, "I see the old man of the mountain." Now, for those that don't know, the old man of the mountain was, until very recently, a rock outcropping in the state of New Hampshire that was the profile of a man. So basically, we were seeing the same thing. We were seeing the profile of a man. "What do you see?" she asked me. I said, "I see a man too, only I can't help but feel it's your dad come to say goodbye or to watch over you one last time." "Doesn't look anything like my dad," she said. That was a bit of a relief. I still kept staring at it, wondering why tonight, of all nights, I was seeing this. My skeptic's brain won out, and I eventually convinced myself that there had to be a simple explanation, and in my exhausted state, I was just making too much of it. I managed to put it out of my mind. We continued talking quietly, some tears were shed for her dad, and after several more minutes, I looked up at the ceiling again. The oval of light was still there, but the profile had gone away. We hadn't turned off any lights, no shades were drawn, no doors were closed, was just gone. I blinked a couple of times and stared at the ceiling, stunned. I turned to Amy and I said, "The old man went away." Amy looked up and said, "Okay." Now that is spooky. So we lay there in silence for a minute or two, trying to understand the situation. Had we just seen a ghost come and go? Should we get on the phone with the paranormal hotline? I was beginning to question everything I thought I knew about the universe. After a while, staring at this thing, breathing a bit heavily, Amy spoke up. "We took a tissue out of the box." Now we had a clue. While we were talking and crying, I grabbed a tissue out of the box that was lying on the dresser next to us. So we both slowly sat out of bed, looked around the room. Lying on the dresser next to the bed was an oval-shaped hand mirror. On the other side of the room, the lamp was on. The light from the lamp was shining down onto the mirror, which was reflecting an oval beam of light onto the ceiling above us. A tissue sticking out of the box on the dresser was obstructing the beam on one side and casting a rough shadow onto a side of the oval, which our brains, as human brains tend to do, turned into a profile. When we grabbed the tissue out of the box, naturally the profile had gone away. Problem solved. We turned out the light and we went to sleep. Now, a spiritual person might say that everything happens for a reason and nothing is random. They might say that what we saw what we saw because something or someone, perhaps Ted's spirit, arranged for it to happen. I've given it a lot of thought over the past couple of months, and I've decided that I do indeed believe Ted Harris was with us in spirit that night. I do not believe that Ted's spirit returned to us in the form of a mirror, a box of Kleenex, and an incandescent lamp. I believe that that was just a coincidence, and besides, it's never really not Ted's style. Maybe for a halogen or an LED or a fluorescent lamp, I could believe it was Ted. I believe Ted was with us in spirit that night when he made sure that before we went to bed, we looked at our problem, looked at it logically, took it apart, and figured out exactly why it was doing what it was doing. Ted wouldn't have had it any other way.